Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any of our watches. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing. Today we discuss one of my favorite sizes of one of my favorite Breitling watches. This is the Breitling Navitimer B01 Chronograph 41 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. This is a nicely sized chronograph from the long-running line that traces its lineage to 1952. The watch debuted back then as Breitling's second circular slide rule calculator chronograph, but its first that featured all the resources necessary for flight calculations in the cockpit. The watch, of course, features the signature AOPA wings and crest. It was originally created either by the AOPA and built by Breitling or for the AOPA by Breitling. There's a subtle distinction there, but they were associated from the very beginning, and the watch was available through the American Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association catalog. The very first versions would have had AOPA on that little slash through the middle of the shield. Here it is now just a decorative element, as there is no formal association, but there is a nod to that history. 41 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. You can see the watch is 13.7 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip, 46.9 millimeters with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs, which is quite broad for a 41 millimeter watch, but it gives it a bit of a modern look amid some of the vintage cues. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, it wears nicely, comfortably. It's not thin, and it does have a bit of an outward cantilevered bezel, so it probably won't slip underneath the tightest of dress cuffs, though jacket cuffs should be just fine. I recommend it for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. Again, my wrist is 16. The strap is luxe, more than you expect on a pilot's watch, where you might expect calfskin. Here we get alligator leather, which is more expensive, and the most expensive type is usually the large rectangular symmetrical scale, which we have here. It's thick cut, bolstered to give it volume with a contrasting stitch, which is a very aviation-centric element, the contrasting stitch on leather. You can see on the bottom, calfskin, no crimping, no gouging. It is a Breitling factory strap. The buckle is a single fold deployant with twin trigger release. So you press the two triggers to pop it open. You can see there's a combination of satin and polish on the buckle itself for a little bit of contrast. And as with all pin buckles that go deployant, the combination of the pin buckle and the deployant clasp will prevent the watch from falling off while you are donning or removing it by creating a continuous loop to the other side that will open without completely releasing the watch. That's the point of a deployant clasp. And again, twin trigger, so it cannot pop open inadvertently. The case is the most vintage evocative element, as the minimally beveled lugs squared off on the end with a thin mid-case are representative of the kind of features you would have seen on 1950s watches in general, and 1950s Navitimers in particular. We've got a nice break between satin and polish to differentiate. You can see we also have a break between satination within the recesses of the bezel and then polish everywhere else. We have vintage-style pump pushers with polish and satin finish, a Breitling B on the crown, which is a push-down. As you can see, the watch features 30 meters water resistance. That's sufficient for an aviation watch, but you don't want to swim with it. We have a dramatically domed glass box style sapphire that is very much like a vintage plexiglass and gives you a little bit of that off-axis distortion and height. The bezel is very straightforward. It's a calculator bezel with a logarithmic scale, a circular slide rule, though it doesn't have all of the scales you'll find on a conventional engineer's slide rule. It's primarily for multiplication and division, so here's how it works. Let's say I want to divide, let's say 70 by 35. It's going to work like a fraction. I'm going to put 70 over 35, the number to be divided, on top of the number that's dividing. I'm going to go back to the index, which is this little 10 on the inner scale, and you can see 70 divided by 35 is 2. You got to keep your decimals in mind. It won't do that for you, but provided you can do that, you can calculate quite quickly. Now, let's say I want to multiply, I don't know, just multiply 30 by 2. You put 30 over the index. Then you find 2 on the inner scale. Sure enough, 30 multiplied by 2 is going to give you 60. That's how you do it. Very easy to use. By the time you get familiar with it, you'll be able to outpace your friends at the restaurant. While they whip out their smartphones to calculate the tip, you'll have that aces with this thing in a few seconds. Now, there are applique indices on the dial, which give it an upscale look. Remember, 1950s Navitimers would not have had those applique. They would have been printed. We have baton-style hands for hours and minutes, little red varnished chronograph seconds hand. And then we have sub-registers in tone-on-tone black on a sunburst silver metallic blue, which I love. You've got that silver blue, and I'd say this one's more blue than silver, although it has silver undertones. Let's do a lume shot. You can see that the primary hands and indices are luminescent. We've got that lovely silver blue, let's call it slate blue metallic, and then, of course, the wings that are not AOPA wings up at the top. There is a little date, another element you wouldn't have found on an old 50s Navitimer. It has a quick set, so you can rapidly cycle the date. Pull the crown out all the way. It does activate stop seconds, so you can synchronize the watch to a reference time. The watch does feature a column wheel, which you can see on the back. You can really hear it and really feel it. Column wheel feel and sound on a Breitling B01 in-house caliber, always among the best in the business. And you do have a vertical clutch here, so when you start the chronograph, there is no extraneous movement. Unlike a lateral clutch, a vertical clutch is seamless. Also, unlike a lateral clutch, you can leave a vertical clutch engaged. No additional wear, tear, or hazard to the movement. Breitling caliber B01 debuted in 2009 on the Chronomat. Wasn't originally designed to be seen on display casebacks. Fortunately, it's fairly large and fairly handsome, so it works well as a display caseback movement. 5-position adjusted, COSC certified chronometer, 4 Hz beat rate, 47 joules, vertical clutch, column wheel, stop seconds, quick set date, and a 70-hour power reserve. You can see a combination of Edicron and then a micrometric eccentric screw system for fine timing adjustments. And unusual, outside of high horology and Rolex watches, we have a KIF shock protection system here rather than Inca block. The finishing is mechanical but handsome and commensurate to the price of the watch. If you love this watch, reach out. Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.